Hello everybody and welcome back to the garage. In this video we'll be doing part 3 of the Catalina Pinball Machine Restoration series. If you haven't seen the first 2 parts, I would go ahead and recommend watching those first. In this video we're going to be focusing mainly on the cosmetics as I described at the end of part 2. Restoring the wood trim pieces, making the paint look a little bit better, fixing some little spots in the backglass, polishing all of the metal stuff like the plungers, the coin mechanism, making the legs look better, getting some new bolts, replacing the feet, and whatever else we can come up with to make this machine look really good once again. So let's get started. So the first thing we have to do in cosmetically making this machine look a lot better has actually already been done, and that has to do with the back door here. We gave both sides of it a clear coat, so now it's got a layer of protection. It darkened the color of the door a little bit, and so now it more matches the wood around the cabinet. If I go ahead and take it out, on the back, there's some more things now. Me and my dad put a little bit of reinforcement with this metal on the door so that it wouldn't warp, so now it's more straight than it was before. And I also drew up this little backbox diagram because inside the machine it says there's a backbox diagram on the back door. So what I did is I just did a hand drawing of all of the components that are in the back box, and then I drew a little bit more detailed descriptions down at the bottom showing the switch positions of the score reels, the score motor, the credit reel, and all that stuff. So just a little bit of a reference guide so that if I ever need to service this machine again, I can look at this and see what exactly needs to be in what position. So that's been done. So the back door is now completely finished, and I think it looks a lot better. And as a result of the clear coat, the back door has a little bit of a tighter fit now, which is actually okay. It takes a little bit more effort to put it into the groove down here. But perhaps one of the best things is that once you get the door in and you lock it, it's a lot harder to turn the lock, meaning that the part of the lock on the inside has a lot more grip on the inside of the wood. And so now this door is completely still. It's like it's part of the machine. So that's great. So that's the first thing we did. And now we're going to start restoring the rest of the wood, polishing the metal stuff, revitalizing the paint, and making this machine look a million times better. All right, first let's start with some metal polishing. So I went ahead and I took the plunger assembly out of the machine. It's just held in with a single screw in the center right here with this big washer, so that's pretty easy to take out. So what I want to do before I start polishing this thing is I want to take this whole assembly apart because I want to do each piece one at a time. So first let's start with the main plunger. It looks like I can take that out pretty easily. Take off the rubber. And this rubber definitely needs to be replaced, so I'll have to buy a new one of those. Oh, no way. The little clamp that's in here that keeps it together, one of the legs is missing, and the other one just broke when I tried to bend it. So, oop, that just flew. But now that allows me to take the spring out, so I can take that out, and I should now be able to just pull this straight out. There we go. Just a little bit stuck because I doubt that it's ever been removed before. Now, taking out the ball loading plunger should be a piece of cake. I just have to unscrew this little bigger metal part here. It's just screwed on with some threads, but I did notice that I can't get it off with my hands, so that thing is on there. So I'm going to have to either heat it up, put some lubricant in there to get that out, and then I can undo this little clamp here, and then the plunger will just pull right out. And this is what it had to come to get this thing to actually come off. I have one set of pliers holding the plunger still so it's not rotating, and another set that's actually unscrewing the end cap here. So I had to get some serious force on this thing to actually get it to unscrew. So I think now we're okay. Seems pretty loose now. I'll go ahead and see if I can unscrew it by hand. Yes, now I can unscrew it by hand. And there we go. So it just had a lot of rust buildup in there. So hopefully getting it back on should be a lot easier. So now this plunger can come straight out. I already removed the cotter key that was holding it in. So there we go. Now we have all the pieces out, and I can start polishing what needs to be polished. Number one with the Dremel, and as you can see, it looks a ton better than how it looked before. Before there was only just a tiny little spot around the edge where the chrome part, the actual metal, was still visible. So it's not perfect, but it's much better. I did also go ahead and wire brush the inside of this thing too to get all the rust off, and that looks a ton better now. So this plunger is looking quite a bit better. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other plunger. As you can see, this one has some rust on the top. This one's not as bad as the other one, but I'll make it to where this rust will not be on the plunger anymore and it will look better. And this is what the inside of this one looks like. You can see there's a little bit of corrosion rust in this one as well, and I will be getting that off, and also be going ahead and polishing the little plunger assembly holder as well, because it also needs some polishing if I want to make it look much better. So I'll go ahead and polish all of this stuff, and I'll come back once I'm done and show you the final results. All right, so now we have the pinball machine on a couple sawhorses, and we took all of the legs off. As you can see, the paint behind the legs actually looks pretty good. So I imagine they haven't been taken off a ton. I mean, there's a little bit of wood loss down here, but it's not too big of a deal. It actually looks pretty good behind the legs for 76 years old. So here are the legs over here. We took all of the feet off. 3 of the legs have this little metal piece that the legs screw into. This one is missing that piece because this is the one that had the missing foot, and it just had a bolt screwed into the bottom of it. So we'll get another one of these metal parts for this leg, and we'll get 4 new feet, and we'll obviously refinish these legs to make them look a little bit better. The next thing we're going to do is take out the back box and take out the back glass, like remove the back box from the machine so that we can refinish these wood trim panels. So what that's going to involve is removing the connectors. I already removed all of the necessary back box connectors and the bulb plug. We're going to have to remove both of the door panels. And I think that's pretty easy because the rear panel, the wooden panel back here, both hinges are in the same direction. So once I open this door, I should be able to just pull the rear panel out, and then the whole thing will come out as a unit. And then after that, I can remove the 4 big screws that secure the back box in place. So that's going to be a little involved, but it shouldn't be too hard to accomplish. So that's the next thing we're going to do, is just kind of strip this machine down a little bit so we can get to a spot where we can start restoring the wood trim pieces. So let's go ahead and start with the back box removal. The back box has been removed, and this is what we're left with, just the playfield portion. As you can see back here where the back box was, it's pretty dirty. So that will get cleaned as well before the back box goes back on. This piece of wood right here, this is one that you don't normally see. It's inside the back box. We're gonna refinish this one too, just because it's here, why not refinish it? So what me and my dad are thinking about doing is taking out the nails on this piece of wood and replacing them with screws, like screws that are around the same size as this, just so they're not like huge massive screws that you can see. and probably on this wood piece as well, because this one, well, when it doesn't have the clamp on it, it kind of shakes a little bit. And as you can see, one of the nails here is kind of popping out a little bit. So it probably wouldn't hurt to replace those with little tiny screws. And then once we sand this down and polish it, we can put some wood filler over the top and make those less visible. This one will probably leave the original nails in because this one is super solid. The nails are flush with the wood and they're not super visible. So that's the current plan. We took out the backglass. As you can see, there's what the back of that looks like. And the back box is right here on this other set of sawhorses. So this is what the back box looks like when it's removed from the machine. So what we're going to do is refinish these wood pieces here, and we'll just give the paint cleaning and then put a clear coat on it just to give it some more protection and stop it from flaking, because I did notice on the playfield part of the cabinet here, we do have some spots where the paint is starting to flake off. So that'll be a good layer of protection to prevent more of that from happening. For the back box, when we removed the back glass, we took off the clamp that was on this side that held in the rear panel where the LEDs are, just so the glass could come out easier. And this is the top side of the back box, which is a little dirty. We'll definitely give that a clean. And then down here, we just have all the miscellaneous parts. That's the back box internals, and it was actually pretty easy to remove. You just take out all the main connectors, which is just these three. As you can see, those are the wires for it over there on the play field. Take those out, then open both doors, and then as you saw, me and my dad were able to just lift the back box internals right out of the hinges. So that comes out actually pretty easily. The legs and the coin door are there, so this is just kind of the parts area. And so now this machine is pretty much disassembled to the point where we want it. And so now we're going to be doing all the refinishing to the wood, cleaning up and putting some clear coat on the paint. Same with the back box. And overall just make this game look a lot better than what it looks like now. So what we decided to do is actually remove the playfield entirely, and I found out it's actually pretty easy to do that. So with the wires that were coming out this end, all of those just run to the playfield, which I already knew. But then we also have to remove this connector here, which has already been done. And so now I think the playfield can just be lifted straight out, because when you open the playfield, it's completely free. It'll slide around. So I think now I can just put the metal arm down, and then me and my dad should be able to lift this playfield out, and then we'll be left with just the cabinet. And the reason we wanted to do that was because when we go about refinishing this wood, we don't want to have like sawdust and dirt and other stuff fall on the playfield and potentially damage it. So we're going to go ahead and remove this playfield. All right, so now the playfield is out, so all that we're left with now is just the cabinet, and so that'll make it a lot easier for us to restore the wood and the paint of the cabinet, since now we don't have the playfield in the way. There's no risk of the playfield getting damaged. It's nice and safe leaning up against the wall over there. But one thing that I did do while the playfield was out here is I took out the coin box. It's held in by 3 screws, 2 of which are secured by nuts underneath the cabinet. I took this out, I cleaned it up, and I 3D printed a little carrier box for coins to drop into. It's held in by Velcro. It doesn't span the entire width of this thing, but it's a pretty decent sized box for the space that's in here. And so if in a situation this machine were to accept coins again, they would drop right here into this box. So that has been created. And we also got new feet for the game. This is one of the original feet. And as you can see, someone at some point decided to stick furniture sliders underneath all 4 of the original feet. which obviously have been there for a long time because they're jammed so far into the feet. But these feet are too far gone to really get looking good again, so we just bought new ones. So this is a brand new metal foot, same diameter thread as the original, and they even come with replacement pieces that are designed to hammer into the wood and give the feet actual threads to screw into, as you can see on the original legs. They also have a piece like that, but it's all corroded and rusty. So we're going to take all of those out and replace them with the new ones. But before we do that, we will refinish these legs and then we'll put the new feet in. So we already have our solution for the legs. And at this point, we are ready to start doing restorations on wood and paint. So without further ado, let's get this whole process started. So we actually decided to take some of the wood trim pieces off of the cabinet. And so what we did is we sanded down one of the two side trim pieces here. This is the other one. It hasn't been sanded, so you can kind of see how it looks before and after the sanding. You can see it takes a lot of the black spots here and the scratches off because we're sanding all that away. And then this is the lockdown bar. We sanded that down as well, and it looks a lot better. So we're going to sand this one down now, and it'll look just like this one when we're done. And then after that, we'll put clear coat on all of these wood pieces so that they look as nice as they can be once again. Okay, so now all of the playfield cabinet pieces have been sanded, as you can see. We also took out the back wooden piece of the playfield. So this piece just went right here along the back, and it was inside the back box. You can't see it with the back box on the machine, but we figured we'd take this piece out as well, sand it down, and we're going to make it look just as nice as the rest of the pieces. Still haven't done the legs yet. That's one of the next things on the to-do list. But as we're going about the machine here, I wanted to turn my attention to the coin door because I always felt like the mechanism on this coin door had been modified in some way, because up until now, the coin mechanism would go in all the way regardless if there was a coin in there or not. And I thought that was kind of strange because usually these push-in style coin mechanisms, they don't go in all the way unless there's a coin actually in them. So I kind of wanted to investigate that to see if maybe someone had modified the coin mechanism so that it would be in free play all the time. Well, after taking the coin mechanism off of this door and taking a close look at it, I determined that was exactly what somebody had done. So when I was looking at it, I was looking at this little silver piece right here, and it was kind of just loose, just moving around, and I thought that was kind of odd. So I took a close look at that piece. I'm going to zoom in on here. You see how that piece has a little spring that holds it in this position like that? Well, that spring was not over the top of that metal piece before, and so this thing was just freely moving around. And this piece is actually what keeps the coin mechanism from going in all the way when there's no coin in there. And so now when you push the coin mechanism in and there's no coin in it, that piece will come down and stop the coin mechanism right here. So the coin mechanism will not go in any further. So this is how it's supposed to be when the machine is not, modified to be on free play. And then another thing I wanted to look at was this coil right here. I'd always wondered what this did, because the only time this coil fires, it moves this little piece. The only time this coil fires is when the credits in the machine are greater than or equal to 1. So if there's at least 1 credit in the machine, when you push in the coin mechanism and the upper switch right here closes, wow, that's out of focus, this coil will fire like this, and it will stay that way until the coin mechanism is backed all the way out. Well, now I know what this coil does, because now that I fixed this thing, I know what this is supposed to do. When you have credits in the machine, like say you won a free game while you were playing, this fires and it keeps this piece from coming down so that you can push the coin mechanism in all the way when there's no coin in there. And I had always wondered if this machine had some sort of capability to start a game without a coin in it when you won a free game, and it actually does, and that is what that coil is for. So say if you had 2 credits lit up on the backglass because you won 2 free games, you'd be able to push this in 2 times without a coin in it, and then once it got to 0 credits, then it would limit itself back to being able to go about halfway in, as you just saw, because this piece would come down. So now I know for sure that this coin door was modified so that you didn't have to put in any coins to start the game. It was always on free play. But the funny thing is, whoever did that in the past didn't realize that there was a much simpler way to wire this machine up so that it would always be on free play. Just tape this down. All you had to do is just put some tape securing this part of the coil in, and then this piece would never come down, and so the machine would always be on free play as a result. You didn't have to take out the coin mechanism and remove a spring. You just have to tape this so that it stays in and prevents this piece from coming down. So that's all you have to do, and that's probably all that I'm gonna do, because I think I now have an idea of what that free play toggle in the back box actually does. And here's the little jack that I'm talking about. So it's just a little piece that comes out. It's just a little 4-pin connector where there's a little bridge between each pair, and you stick it in either the free play side or the regular side, depending on how you want the machine to operate. Well, for the longest time, I thought there was a missing wire right here because I saw a little bit of what looked like a wire to be sticking out of here. And of course, as you can see, there's solder there. So I always thought someone modified this somehow and took out the wire. Well, I actually removed this connector. I took out those 2 screws, and all it is there's a little jumper wire underneath the connector here. And so that's what it's for. So there's not actually a missing wire. And if you look closely, you can see there's a jumper wire under this one too. It's connecting this connector over to this one. So there's a couple jumper links underneath the connector. So here's my theory as to what this jack actually does, and I won't be able to test this until the machine's put back together. I don't think the phrase free play means what I think it means. I don't think it means you can play the game without inserting any coins. What I think free play means is the game will allow you to win free games based on the replay values that are set here. And so I think what happens when you put it in regular mode is it prevents you from getting these replays, so that when you play a game, when the game is over, you have to put in a coin every time you want to play again. And so that's what I think free play means. You get a free play when you win a replay value based off of the values that are set here. So I won't be able to test that until the machine is back together, but that's what makes the most sense to me, because when I have this jack in the regular position, that coil in the coin door will never fire regardless of how many credits are in the machine. So that kind of backs up that idea. For now, we'll go back to doing the restoration as we were doing. Back box has been sanded down for the most part. As you can see, we put some blue tape around the edge of the paint so that when we sand under here, it's not going to ruin the paint. So this is what the back box trim looks like now that it's been sanded. And I did want to go ahead and clean up the paint on both the back box and the playfield cabinet. And I wanted to try a magic eraser just very lightly to see if it would get any of the underlying dirt off. And it does work. It does not take off any of the paint because I wanted to be gentle with the paint. This is a spot that I magic erased right here, and you can see the dirt versus where I magic erased. It looks a whole lot better. So I'm actually going to start doing this on the playfield cabinet because today's a really hot day. So let's go ahead and get started with that, and I'll do it before and after, and we'll see how it looks. So I'll do kind of a quick before and after shot of the cabinet here. So this is before I did any magic erasing to the cabinet. As you can see, well, once it goes into focus, you can still see that there's some dirt in the front cabinet here. I did go ahead and wipe it down, so there's a little less dirt than what there was before, but you can still see quite a bit of ground in dirt in the cabinet here. And I'm hoping that the magic eraser will also help take off the little black spots that are embedded in the paint like this. Hoping that it will make that come off, or at least look better. So you can see on the cabinet here the level of dirt that is in the paint. This is before I did anything to it. Back here will probably have the biggest difference. You can see it's extremely dirty back here. And this should all be yellow paint. So I expect a real good transformation with the back part of it here. And then here is the right side. So I'll go ahead and get started with the magic eraser, and we'll see how it looks after I'm done. All right, I finished magic erasing both the playfield cabinet and the back box, and they look a lot better now. There's definitely a lot of dirt that came off, especially on the back panel of the playfield cabinet, like I thought, and on the back box. Let's take a look at what I did. So here's the front. Definitely looks better. Didn't have a ton of dirt on it to begin with, but it is better. Left side, a lot of that surface dirt is now gone, and I was able to get the black spots on the cabinet off with some Goo Gone, so those are now gone. Here's the back. You can see how much of a difference the magic eraser made. It got a lot of dirt off this panel. And then the right side looks better as well. We're able to get that tape residue off with a little plastic spudger, so that came off. So there's that. Back box, this is the top. This was the dirtiest panel, and it now looks a lot better. And the entire back box had a layer of dirt on it as well, similar to the playfield cabinet, so now it looks a lot better. This is the bottom, and we did also sand this bottom piece just to make it a little more smooth, so we did that. Didn't do any magic erasing there, obviously, because there's no paint, but... And here is the left side. So yeah, all in all, the paint on this machine is in pretty good shape for being 76 years old. One other little thing that I wanted to address about this machine were the washers on the leg bolts. A few of the bolts didn't have the right size washers, because you can tell what the original washer size was because of how much wood on the legs is gone. Most of them had the correct washers, but the washers weren't really in that good of condition, and I saw one of them was cracked right through, so I went ahead and got some brand new washers to put on these leg bolts. And so now they're all the same, they all look good, and they're the exact same diameter as the old washers, so they will fit perfectly in the legs. So that's another little thing that I got done. I also got some nuts to put on the new feet so we could lock them in place, and I was actually able to reuse 2 of the old nuts on the original feet so that all 4 of these feet could have nuts, and so that way they'd be locked into place when the legs go back on the machine. So a couple little quality of life improvements right there. So now that all the paint and everything has been cleaned, we'll just do the last bit of sanding, finish up this wood trim, finish sanding that, sand down the legs, and then we can start doing our staining and clear coating. All right, so it's been a little while since I last did an update on Catalina, so I'll show you what's been happening. So me and my dad changed our minds about using stain, and we just decided to use clear coat only instead. We also decided that we're not going to clear coat the cabinet and the back box paint because it's already got a layer of clear coat on it, and if you look at it in the light just right, it still has some shine to it. so we're not going to touch that. But as you can see, the side trim pieces and the back trim piece have now been nailed back on. This one's been clear coated a couple times. This one and the other one have had their first clear coat, but it's kind of hard to tell because it's been sanded, so those are waiting for their next layer of clear coat. The back box has had 3 coats of clear coat on it for each of the 4 trim pieces, and I'm glad that we went the route of just doing clear coat because, as you can see, it matches the inside wood, the interior wood here, exactly. And this wood also has a clear coat on it from the factory, so I'm glad that that matches so well. The lockdown bar is right here, and as you can see, it's been clear coated as well, so things have been going great for the clear coating and refinishing of the wood on this game. So I'll come back once everything has been finished with the clear coat. Well, here's the state of Catalina so far. So we went ahead and sanded and clear coated every wood trim on the playfield cabinet and on the back box. As you can see, the back box is back on. So the wood that you see here is final, and I think it looks a lot better. You remember how many black marks and just stains were all over these side trim pieces? Now they look much better and they feel much better. They feel very smooth. So that is what those look like. The back glass is back in, but the internals are not, so the back box is still empty. But one thing we did do, because when this machine was together, whenever you moved the machine, the top section of the back glass would rattle a lot. And so what I did to keep that from happening when the machine is together is I put 4 little dabs of hot glue in this little crack up here. You can't see that from the front of the machine, and it prevents the back glass from rattling. So if I put moderate force on it like this, you can see no more rattle. It would have a good 1/2 centimeter or so of rattle before. So that's been put in. I put one of the little clamps back in just to ensure the back glass wouldn't fall out. But with that hot glue, I don't think it's going to. So the next thing we're gonna do, I think, is put in the playfield and all the wiring, and then we should be able to start reassembling this machine. It's been apart for a long time, so I'm finally glad to see it coming together. The only thing we still have to do to the machine is the legs. We started to sand them, but we haven't clear coated them. So let me show you what those look like right now. So here are what the 4 legs look like after their first pass with the sander. It was done with an 80 grit piece of sandpaper. As you can see, they look quite a bit better. All that old clear coat is now gone. We still have some pretty big holes from where the washers are, but that's just going to be how it is. So you can see that's what those look like. On the back, we decided not to sand the internal part of the leg right here, just because you can't see this at all when it's mounted to the machine. But we did go ahead and sand the back part and also the bottoms of the legs. So all that you can see will be clear coated with new clear coat. So you won't see this. So I think even with that first pass, I think the legs look a lot better. So now these legs are going to get another sanding with a higher grit sandpaper, and then we'll put a couple coats of clear coat on each one, and then the machine will finally be ready to be completely put back together. One thing we did do to these legs before sanding them, there were a couple of them that had pretty big nicks of wood missing. So like on this one here, what we did is we just filled it with some wood filler, and so now the leg is totally flat right there, and it'll look better once the clear coat is applied. There was another leg that looked just like that. It had a big nick missing. Let me see if I can find it. Yep, right here. You can see there's a big chunk missing out of the leg, and so now that's been filled in, and so it'll look a lot better once it gets clear coated. It already looks a lot better now. I mean, you wouldn't want a big chunk missing out of a wooden leg, would you? So that was something we did just to make it look a little bit better. So I'll come back once these legs have been finished with the sanding and the clear coating. All right, here are what the forelegs look like after their final layer of clear coat. As you can see, we put the new feet on and they look great. You can see how much more shiny they are. So at this point, everything about the restoration is complete, and so now Catalina is ready to be put back completely together. So let's get started doing that. And so, this completes the Catalina Restoration Series. This game is now fully working, all the wood pieces have been restored, and it is ready to be played just like it was back in 1948. I hope you've enjoyed going through the restoration process of this pinball machine with me. This is the first machine that I've gone through and fixed up in a really long time, so it was nice to get back into doing pinball machines like this again. So that's going to be it for this video and for the Catalina Restoration Series. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.